Welcome back. Financial Services Group, Absa, has this morning confirmed media speculation that its CEO of a mere 15 months, Daniel Mminele, is on his way out of the door. In a statement released on a JSE SENS notice at the opening of the markets, the bank indicates that Absa Bank Boards have been in discussions with Mr. Mminele around his working relationship with them. The statement goes on to say that between them, they are working on a suitable separation arrangement, with a further statement set to be released at some point during the day. So then, for now, media publications suggest that Mr. Mminele could exit the bank as early as Wednesday. Well, topping that with what's been happening with the markets in and around the country, here at home, there has been some corporate wrangling, Absa activity, and we need to get an analysis on that as we cross now to Ricus Reeders, who is wealth manager at PSG. Good afternoon to you, Ricus. I mean, like, it has been a busy day with corporate wrangling hogging the headlines there. What do you make out of this Absa saga?
Community has been around for a while and it's come to an head. It's a pity. I think, the outgoing CEO has only been there for about 16 months. So it really seems that with his appointment, there was not clarity as to the exact role that he was going to play. And from there you get the difference between him and the board. Now, I don't know what was I don't know what the terms of the appointment was. I don't know what happened in the past 16 months, but it doesn't reflect very well on a company that you appoint somebody for 16 months and then all of a sudden you're wrong. I mean, everybody can make a mistake, and whether it be from the CEO side as to what he thought he was going to be able to do, or the board as to what they wanted him to do. But it is a pity because Absa has gone through a number of CEOs over the past years, ever since they split off from Barclays. And in the current banking environment, where old-style banking is being replaced very quickly by innovations on the financial scene, whether it be online banking or new entrants into that market. What you really want is a very steady hand on the tiller, and also certainly, if you're an old-style bank like Absa is, a very definite strategy as to counter whatever threat you get from new entrants, and certainly how you adapt to what is a very, very quickly changing financial environment.
Well, given his credibility, skills, experience, qualifications, and reputation, do you think that he was too big for Absa, in a sense that if you have heard a Formula One driver coming to drive a 1.6 cc?
Well, it might be, but if one takes a look at, for example, Stephen Collar, who used to be head of Absa's investment banking, and he's gone over to EOH, for example, which is very much, at using your analogy of an F1 driver going into a car that was basically broken. So the right person in the right place, if those two things gel, that's wonderful. So I don't necessarily think it's a question of too big or not well suited. I really think it's just the initial discussion possibly wasn't very clear. In other words, there was a misunderstanding between the two parties involved, the one party being the board and the other being the CEO.
So now, news making the rounds are about strategic issues and transformation. And now they are moving from that to, for example, the Black Management Forum saying that they demand answers concerning why he is stepping down. And the focal point has been now What's happening with black executives when it comes to corporate South Africa? We've heard the Old Mutual saga. Now it's this one at Absa and also at African Bank. So now the issue here is about black management executives as well as corporate South Africa. What do you make out of that?
Well, I think one should be careful in using specifics to address what is really a universal point as far as South Africa is concerned. One tends, success stories don't grab the headlines. I won't call it failures, but when one gets into what can be described as a strife, politicizing it, I think, is possibly taking the focus away from what the company should be doing for its customers and obviously its shareholders. So those are valid questions, but those should not be the only questions.
Yeah, even though they might not be the only questions, is it a big deal when a black executive has a problem with the board in terms of how he would like to turn the organization around, even though he accounts to the board and the board determines the strategic direction of the company? I mean, shouldn't there be synergy and a harmonious working relationship in terms of taking the organization forward, unlike having somebody with such credibility coming to run the organization and he has a fallout with the board and he has to go?
I think that's where I agree with you, Colin, and that was my point. In other words, if there is a misunderstanding of the role, the strategy going forward, again, coming back to our analogy of an F1 driver, it's not merely an F1 driver being asked to run an old car. It's asking him to run, for example, a ship. In other words, it's a complete mismatch, and that is a failure of communication. And at that level, that doesn't tell a very good story about the structure of the organization, because that kind of thing shouldn't happen. Fortunately, it is the exception rather than the rule. Unfortunately, it is Absa, which is a history of, certainly over the past years, of trying to find a figurehead that can lead the company forward and take the board with him.
All right, on a parting shot now, let's just get a very brief analysis on how the markets are performing and the indicators then as far as the South African currency against other international currency. I mean, we've heard that the rand has been having the best rally ever.
Yes, it certainly has. And along with other emerging market currencies, we're getting an extra boost from the fact that what is a big part of our economy, agriculture and mining, is doing pretty well. But I think globally there's also a move towards more riskier assets. And with riskier assets, it could be both emerging market stock markets and obviously emerging market currencies. And the rand is an obvious part of that story. So although if one takes a look from internally and say, well, our economy is not doing that well, an outsider might very well say, well, it's still doing, it's still got a better risk return than I could get elsewhere, whether it be a US dollar or a euro or a UK pound, for example.
All right, Ricus, thank you so much for the market update. And, Ricus Reeders is the market analyst at PSG Wealth Management. Of course, when we look at other news now, former Absa CEO Mminele